Hello and welcome to another session of Miss Thomas Learning from Home. This is really important, but it's part 2 of the uprisings. So if you haven't watched the video on the uprisings in Mercia, Exeter and the North, you need to go and watch that first of all, because this is a continuation. So our final uprising that we need to be aware of is the rebellions in the East. Now this all comes to play because of reforms in the church are being unpopular. William needs to gain money to fund his rebellions and try and control the rebellions. And so, therefore, he takes treasure from the monasteries to pay the soldiers to protect him. One of the other things he also does is he replaces Stigand, the Archbishop of Canterbury, with a Norman who is known as Lanfranc. This really upsets the Anglo-Saxon people. So we have got our first rebellion, and this takes place at Ely, and it includes the man Hereward or Hereward the Great. Okay, now he is an English thane, he is powerful, and he doesn't like the fact that the treasures have been taken from his local area. The local people do not resist. So what he decides to do is go to Peterborough Abbey and take the treasure from there. William convinces the Danes, who have united with Hereward, to leave, and so therefore Hereward is then left unaccompanied and unsupported. William then left to go into Normandy. That was a really bad mistake, as Hereward did not leave at that point. Hereward is gaining further support. He's also joined by those two earls that we have been aware of again, Edwin and Morcar. So they've been involved in the north, but they're also back involved again here. Remember, they fought at Fulford, they lost. They were supportive in the north, but were defeated and were pardoned. But now they're in support of Hereward down in the east. William returns. He marches to Ely. He attacks Ely, first of all by sending ships to block their supplies, and the English then surrender. Morcar and other leaders are imprisoned. Their hands are cut off and eyes are gouged out, but Hereward escaped. Now, the really important bit here is whereas in the north, in the early rebellions, these leaders were pardoned, were forgiven, William now has a change of events. He imprisons them and then he's quite violent in their approach. Consequently, there is no more widespread support. Okay, it's the last widespread support of William's response and William's rule. So I'm just going to go over this again. Hereward the Great is the leader of this rebellion. He leads the rebellion because he's unhappy at William taking all of the treasure that's being taken from Peterborough Abbey and the treasures being taken from English people. The Danes lead with Hereward in this rebellion, but the Danes lead with Hereward in this rebellion, but William is able to win them over by giving them resources and giving them a topic of conversation to let them go. So he's got that oath, that loyalty there. Consequently, Edwin and Morcar come back, but instead of them being pardoned, they are later imprisoned and their hands are cut off because William uses not violence but tactics of suffocating, of stopping the supplies by besieging Ely, meaning that this is the last widespread rebellion. So the conquest of England now is seen as complete. My questions to you, though, Year 10. Was this justified? Was William justified in his actions? So, was he justified at Ely in his method of attack and restoring order? Was he justified in his harrying of the north, destroying the land? Was he justified in his discussions and building of castles and sieges at Exeter? And then finally, was he justified with his responses at Mercia in the Welsh borders? How much of a threat were each of these rebellions to William? I would say this was quite a big threat to William to begin with, because he was able then to come, he spoke, but then he left. So I would say that is a negative thing. But then he came back and said that it was a threat again. If we look at the north, I would say that this is a very high threat to William. Look at the way that he went about attacking them. This was probably his most violent approach. Again, Exeter, I would say this was a smaller threat to begin with because of his talks of oaths and loyalties and discussions, but turned into a violent response overall. And then the threat at Mercia, I would say, is your weakest overall. And then how does this poster of Hereward the Great or Hereward the Wake portray him? Okay, so look at the way his stance is, look at the way his position, his face. He looks very strong, he looks very iconic. So my key questions to you again was, what is the harrying of the North? How was William justified with the way he dealt with the rebellions? Why did William treat the Exeter rebellions so leniently? And why were the people uprisings against William and the Norman rule? Why were they so unhappy? Again, I've got your keywords here. I've got your white textbook pages, GCSE pod, and then that BBC teacher link there should you need any help. I hope that helps.